All right, everybody, it's the BK Apologist coming to you live and direct. Let's go. Yeah, what's going on, party people in the place to be? I go by the name of the BK Apologist, transmitting all the way live. New York is the city, Brooklyn is the borough. What's good? What's popping? It's Friday. I'm glad that we are all here. I know usually you wait for the bodega, but my man pulled up early so we could talk and chop it up. This is a good friend of mine's, fellow brother in Christ. We go to the same church. It's a guy that I've admired for a great number of years, and he goes by the name, well, the newly doctor. He just became a doctor, Doctor Shawn F. Brown. Say what's up to the people, sir.
Yeah. Yo, what's going on, everybody? How you doing? Glad to be here. Very excited, my man Fredo. What's good?
Chilling, man, chilling. And you know, it, I saw your post, graduating. Now, what exactly do you have your doctorate in?
All right. So this past semester I received my third master's. My first is in general and special education. The second is in educational leadership. This master's in urban education. And my PhD is in urban education. I'm specializing in leadership and educational policy, and also got an advanced certification in Africana studies.
Nice.
Yeah.
And in African studies, was there a specific subject matter, or was it like a general overview?
A general overview, you had like different courses you could choose from. I chose to look at pre-colonial Africa. I looked at emancipation. I had a course on W.E.B. Du Bois, and yeah, things that I kind of knew that I brushed up on. So it was kind of cool.
Yeah, I'm not the biggest fan in Du Bois. I felt like he was a little bit of a, you know,
Mhm.
you know what I mean. Incredibly bright guy, genius. Eh. But anyway, the reason why I wanted Dr. Brown here is, like I said, I've known him for years, and I know his story and his journey, and I feel like more now than ever, it's important to hear black men of faith. I mean, it was always important, but now that we got everybody's attention via this pandemic, the Rona got everybody sitting down for a minute. So now we can actually listen to black men speak. And I just feel like Dr. Brown here has an amazing journey. Just living in a situation where, the odds were literally against him. And to see him not only survive, but to thrive, I just feel like it's an inspiration. So, with that being said, we're going to start, of course, at the beginning. So, Mr. Brown, you are born and raised in Brownsville, Brooklyn, New York, correct?
Brownsville, Brooklyn, Riverdale Projects, 365, apartment 7N.
Never ran, never will.
Never ran,
Right?
never will.
Now, to those outside of New York, that means absolutely nothing, right? So I want to give you
Mhm.
context just so you can understand where Mr. Brown lived, right? So let me share my screen real quick. Let me see here. There we go. This is from the NYC Health Summary of Vital Statistics 2017, City of New York.
Oh
Right?
boy.
So I'll give you some highlights, or should I say lowlights? Here we go. Brownsville is one of New York City's deadliest neighborhoods. Health department data shows. With its low life expectancy, high infant mortality rate, and large number of murder and drug related deaths, the East Brooklyn neighborhood tops multiple lists in a mortality report released Monday by the New York City Department of Health and Mental Hygiene's Bureau of Vital Statistics, such as Brownsville residents have New York City's lowest life expectancy at 75.6 years, a lifetime that will last a full decade less than a resident of Midtown Manhattan, Greenwich Village, or the Upper East Side. Brownsville had the highest age adjusted death rate in 2017, with 809.4 deaths per 100,000 residents, while the citywide average was just 545.7. Now, mind you, Brownsville is a neighborhood in the borough of Brooklyn. We're not talking to just the borough of Brooklyn. We're simply talking about a neighborhood. And it outpaced the city when it comes to these things. Brownsville also has the city's highest homicide rate from 2013 to 2017, with 16.9 deaths for every 1,000 residents, which is more than 4 times the citywide average of 3.8. Brownsville has the most drug-related deaths in Brooklyn and among the highest in the city, with 24.8 deaths per 100,000 residents from 2015 to 2017. Data shows the citywide average was 13, right? The citywide average. Brownsville babies are among those least likely to live past their first birthdays, and health department data shows. All right, hold on. And I know you're thinking that, well, that's 2017. Well, this WABC posted Tuesday, June 9th, 2020. Brownsville, Brooklyn. Police are investigating after 4 people were shot during a dispute in Brooklyn Monday night. It happened on Bristol Street in Brownsville. At 10:40 p.m., a 23-year-old woman was shot in the face and critically injured. 3 men were also struck by bullets. A 17-year-old, a 35-year-old, and a 50-year-old shot. All sustained non-life-threatening injuries. The woman and the 17-year-old were taken to Brookdale University Hospital, which is terrible. That hospital is trash. The other 2 were taken to Kings County Hospital. So it's still happening, unfortunately. But I just want to give people that view. Now, this is better than when Shawn, when you was growing up, because this is recent stats.
Yeah,
this is recent stats. So how much worse was it when you was growing up, Shawn?
Oh man, I was born in '78. I grew up in the '80s and '90s, and Brownsville is a war zone, man. It was a war zone. I saw my first dead body when I was about 13 years old, right in front of me. And when you see things like that, it just makes you numb to certain things. It makes you numb to violence. It makes you numb to conflict. Like it's not that big of a thing, and it desensitizes you. It robs you of your childhood, and it was every day. Every other day, people getting shot at, stabbed, all kinds of things. So that was life.
And not that I want you to incriminate yourself. I'm hoping that the statute of limitations have expired by this time. But did you, affiliate yourself?
I don't know anything you're talking about. I don't know what you're talking about.
Okay, no problem.
My mother still live over there, so I don't know what you're talking about.
No doubt. I'm not asking you to snitch on anybody else. I'm just talking about you in general. But
well, yeah, you get involved in what's going on. You play your position, and I think it was just kind of like you had to be a part of certain things if you was from a certain projects. Like if it was a fight between projects, you can't say, "Hey, I'm gonna be the better person and walk away," because you get jumped when you go home. So you get involved in certain things. And
were there any like famous gangs in that neighborhood that you recall?
There was some it was different groups. There was some things going on, man. Right. Still, people still are active. Well, a lot of my friends, honestly, a lot of them are locked away. Doing some long times out there, and but I have a couple of people I still connect with. But it was a lot of they had Decepticons, and it was a lot of project beef. Riverdale versus Plaza, Tilden, Marcus Garvey, Co-op, Brownsville houses. I grew up being a part of, I was a 5%er for a brief time. So, it was just different. It was more about the geographical setting you was in.
Right. Were you a hard child to parent?
Very difficult, man. I think that what happened for me is my father got locked up when I was about 3 or 4 years old. And, when you're young like that, you're searching for identity, you're searching for meaning. And if you're growing up in a single parent household like I was, with a single mom, you feminize everything that she says. not realizing that it's just wisdom. So if she says you need to stay away from certain friends because of toxic masculinity, you now say, oh, that's a feminine trait. Or if she says you need to not fight or whatever it is, that's feminine. And so you're looking for a way to feel as if you're somebody. And so I got into a lot of trouble, man. I got involved in some stuff.
Now, you made mention of the 5% nation. For
Mhm.
those who are not acclimated with that, can you explain to the people exactly what is the 5% nation?
Well, again, I I don't know all of the history like I used to, but it's basically it's a body of gods and earths, black men and black women, who sincerely believe that they are God in human form. And to tell you the truth, I still have some beliefs within that I do agree with in terms of us being original people. And I still understand my mathematics every day. I recite it because I do believe in numbers and all that kind of stuff. So, there's a lot of, and that was the first group I think that kind of awakened me to my blackness and being proud of it.
Mm.
So even though I don't consider myself to be a 5%, I do have knowledge of self, and I still connect with a few of them when I can.
Cool. So, so what high school? So you went from. So what was your elementary school?
Oh man, I went to PS 41, and it was right across the street from Riverdale Projects, and it was a cool place, man. Like at that point, most black boys are not turned into super predators because they're small in the eyes or the imaginations of the masses. And so I enjoyed myself. And in Brownsville is like a cut off part of the world, so everybody knows everybody, and it was a very tight knit community. I loved it. Fighting was just a part of what you did. It wasn't, when you step out of Brownsville, you realize like, oh, everybody doesn't fight. No, oh, okay. But growing up, that was just a part of what we did, and I loved it, man. I enjoyed it. I remember every teacher, Miss Cornelius, Miss Lucas, Miss Wexler.
Wow.
Um, and the way that it was, my mother was a single parent, so anytime I act up, my mother gave my teachers permission to do what they needed to do to me to get me in line. So I caught a
You can't
couple
do
of
that anymore.
can't do
You
that,
could have jumped quick for that, boy.
but not back when I was growing up. It was if he's acting up, you deal with him.
Wow.
So I enjoyed it.
Then from there, what junior high did you go to?
From there, I went to 275. It was on Rockaway and Hegeman, and I think that's when I started to take somewhat of a turn. Um, Joined a group, felt like I needed to be tough, and I was just trying to survive. I remember, walking to school and you have like a little razor blade in your mouth, and you have your little weapons on you in case there's some type of project beef. And I was just lost, man. I really was. And I had a good friend that got me into boxing at a young age during junior high school. My friend Sandros, and we had both. We grew up in the same projects, and he was like, listen, let's do this boxing thing. So we used to jog over to Starlight City for my projects and do boxing. And boxing became therapeutic because you knew what you could do, so you didn't have to prove it to anybody. And school itself, in terms of the educational system, subconsciously, I just assumed that it wasn't for me. It's like this whole thing is not for me. And also, in junior high school, if you were too smart, you got beat up. And so you avoid having this academic persona because it led to um, some real consequences. But school it wasn't difficult for me. I was always writing letters to my dad. He was big on penmanship and art, and that was my relationship with him. And
How old were you when he finally came out?
oh, that's fast forwarding. So let me tell you a story.
Okay.
Um, so my father wasn't in my life, but the thing is that my father was always super aggressive, and he was known for doing certain things. And I'm not going to incriminate
Right.
him,
Right.
but
Right.
he was known for doing what he did. But with me, he was super gentle, always. Every time I went on a jail visit, he'd hug me, he'd kiss me. Even now, he's in Panama right now. But he was always kind. So my understanding of masculinity and being a father was weird because I was trying to imitate these tough guys on the street, but then I would speak to my father, who was super gentle. So it was confusing. So I called him, and I told him that I had changed my name and I joined a group. And this was the first time that my father got serious with me, and he yelled at me. And what he said was, "I'm ashamed of you.
Wow.
I'm ashamed of who you've become. You are a coward. You only join that group because you can't fight for yourself.
Wow.
And I don't want to speak to you anymore." So, long story short, the next day I said, "Listen, y'all going to have to give me my beat up or beat down so I can get out, but I can't be a part of your group anymore." The following day, I had to fight a couple of people to get out. I got jumped, and eventually I was out. And he quoted Proverbs 23 to me.
Wow.
And he said, this scripture needs to be a part of your life every day. And we would say to each other, "Yea, though I walk through the valley of death, I shall not," whatever it was. So that was like a big turning point for me when I was in junior high school. And he said, "When I come out, I'm taking you with me." Fast forward, my father came out when I was in the 11th grade in high school. And, my father, I love him. He's still in Panama. I love him, but he's a very serious character, meaning, you can't play with him too much because he has his stuff. And he was like, "Yeah, man, I'm gonna take you to live upstate with me." And my mother was like, "Sure, you want to go? Go for it." She never badmouthed my father. She never spoke negatively about him, ever. She was like, "You'll get to know what type of man he is when you meet him." And that was great because that kept the bonds and the lines of communication open between him and I. And he took me upstate, and this dude, he took me to do construction because I had asked him for a pair of sneakers. And he said, "All right, well, I'm going to drop you off at this corner. You can speak a little Spanish," because I'm Panamanian, by the way. And he said, "Speak a little Spanish, go and make your own money, and then buy your own shoes, your sneakers, or whatever it is." And everything that he did with me as a father was basically preparing me for who I am now. He taught me a lot of life lessons when I was with him. But eventually I went back to be with my mom because I'm a mama's boy and I had to be with her. So,
Right.
yeah, go ahead.
So okay. So high school. So what high school did you go to?
So high school, my mother didn't want me to go to school in Brownsville. The schools I was supposed to go to was Thomas Jefferson, Canarsie, or South Shore. And a lot of my friends were going there. And my mother said, "You know what? You love art. Go to school somewhere else." So we filled out for graphic arts in Manhattan on West 50th Street. And that was my first time getting a chance to interact with different races and cultures. Again, Brownsville's kind of cut off from the world. And it was great, man. I really enjoyed it. But in high school, I know Jennifer's going to laugh at this. She always does. In high school, I was still trying to be Mr. Tough Guy. And so we had beef with a school called Park West, which was across the street on 51st Street. And in my mind,
So you had art nerd beef.
it was,
Art nerd beef.
so in my mind, I'm like, these dudes can't be tough. I'm from Brownsville. Like, there's nothing tougher than Brownsville. So we had gotten into a fight, and I had gotten stabbed in my leg, and I started laughing because anytime I feel any kind of like emotion, I laugh. I don't know. It's like a nervous tick, like the Joker or something. I'm special, I guess. And so I got stabbed, and it like cut into my leg, cut through my car canals. I had my car canals and my uptowns, bro.
Oh.
Baby blue. Oh my God.
Crisp joints. I'm sure it was crispy too.
Dude, I'm on food stamps and welfare, and my one pair. So anyway, but it's crazy. When I got stabbed, I was only thinking about my mother, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, she's gonna beat me." I don't know why. It's just Spanish household, and I'm gonna get cursed out. So anyway, I get stabbed. This was in the I think 9th or 10th grade, and my mother came to the hospital, and she said some words that changed my life. She said, "You know what? You're gonna end up dead or in prison, just like your father."
Wow.
And that broke my heart. She was crying. I said, "That is going to be the last time I put my mother through that kind of pain." And thank God, since that time, I cut it all out. That was my turning point.
Right.
I That was it for me. So
And
that's
speaking of turning points, so it was in high school when you first started visiting church.
right. So a friend of mine from high school invited me out, and it was a female friend. I definitely wouldn't have went if it was a friend, a guy friend. It's just my own issues.
Right, right.
Um, so she had invited me out, and it was cool. You know what I mean? It was all right. It was a lot of hugging, a lot of tight hugs, and I was like, no bueno. You know, gusta eso. But a lot of hugs and kindness, and it was like selling treats in the front for some team ash and all this stuff. So again, I came in with like the leather, and I had the Wu-Tang braids and the headband, and I was like, yeah, this is not for me. Like I'm not, but my real motive was never about the church. It was about her. So I was just kind of like, all right, whatever, yeah, I love God too. Um, so it was cool. That was my first time coming out. We was on 42nd Street. Steve Johnson was there. It was cool, man. I liked it. Um, but even when I went, a person that I still connect with now, he's not a part of the church, but Maurice Cozart, he was the first person to reach out to me. And he just spoke to me. He was like, hey, what's up? How you doing? And in that moment, he made me feel like I wasn't what I was trying to project. And he allowed me to just be myself and just be a kid. And I didn't have to be tough with him because he wasn't trying to be tough with me.
Right.
He gave me a sense of relief in that moment. So
Wow.
it was about 14 years old.
So I mean, it wasn't like you went, you heard this amazing message, and you just decided to commit yourself to Christ. There was a process for you, correct?
Yeah, the message wasn't all that. You know, like sometimes the illustrations is like, you know, I was on my farm, you know, feeding birds. They're like, what? Like, but whatever.
Birds in Brownsville.
I get it. You know, you try to be relatable,
Right.
whatever. But what it was the love, man, the diversity. You got to understand when you come from where I come from, you're looking for peace. You're looking for just, you know, you want to relax. You do, because it's tiring. Like being around that all day long, you're looking for some sense of peace. And when I went there and I saw it, I was like, there's a possibility for me to live a peaceful life, because you really don't think that. It's being socialized to, you know, adhere to certain stereotypes, and that's exactly what I was. So in terms of studying the Bible, again, I have my 5% knowledge about me. So I'm studying the Bible with people that don't look like me, and I'm like, all right, you know, I know you're gonna try and, you know, say something that's
Trick
not.
knowledge. The trick
They're gonna,
knowledge.
you know what I mean? Try to tell me some things that's not true. I got a chance to study the Bible with Dan Connor and Matt Fridley and all these different people. But my true motive was, you know, to do my thing
Right.
with that situation. So it came to the end when I was supposed to get baptized, and I was supposed to do some, you know, the final study. Like we create these monumental final studies. Like, boom, once you do this study,
Right. Right.
it's,
The,
it's,
the,
it's
the doors
all,
of heaven open, and
you
right.
know,
Right.
we want to feel like we have a format that God Himself has placed on the word. Yeah, whatever, man. You know, like you'll know when you're ready. But I get it. There's certain things you need to know. But I came an hour late. We were supposed to study on 34th Street at the mall at the time. And I came late. And then the dude, Matt Fridley, said, listen, man, you're not taking it seriously. And I get it. Come back to me in 6 months when you're serious.
Wow.
And people like, Matt, I don't think that's right. He said, no, for him, he needs it. And my process in life in general is I got to take the hard way. I got to suffer a little bit in order for me to get certain things. But I thank God that happened, because it gave me time to reflect on my motive and my purpose and why I was doing what I was doing. And during that time, I kept coming out. I was serious about it. Kept distance from certain situations just to, you know, and it was good. It was refreshing. So I loved it.
Cool. So you become a Christian,
Yeah.
but you're a Christian. Now, how old are you at this time?
I got baptized when I was about 15.
Oh, wow. You're 15. You're a Christian, in Brownsville, in the projects.
Yeah.
I'm
Well,
assuming that didn't go too well with
well,
you.
no. This is the thing about Brownsville. The reason that a lot of kids, and this is not just for Brownsville, but the reason that a lot of kids get beat up and they get jumped and all this different kind of stuff is because you keep playing in the streets like you're somebody that you're not. And when the wolves are out there, they can't tell the difference. So you're an op, you're opposition. I'm going to go get at you because you're acting like you're something you're not. This is something that I speak to my students about. But when you are the church dude, nobody want to bother you because it's just like nobody is like you're preaching God's word. Like when I was in Brownsville, I go door to door sharing my faith. I go on the train sharing my faith. I hold my Bible in my hand, and it'd be a group of dudes smoking weed, and I'm like, "Hey man, I want to invite y'all out to church, man. I really think you need a relationship with God." And dudes respected it because it's transparent and it's real. But what happens now is that, and I don't want to sound too preachy, but like if you're a disciple, then be a disciple. People respect that. Hold it together. Be who you are behind closed doors and in front of people. When you try and act tough outside of the church or inside the church, it's very confusing. So for me as a teenager, as a disciple, people left me alone.
Wow.
They were just like, they would always say, hey, Reverend Brown, what's the scripture for today? That's what the guys that was dealing drugs or whatever in the front would say. Hey, Brown, what's the scripture for today? And I
Right,
would give
right.
them a proverb or something, and they'll tell me on the side, like, "Yo, Shawn, could you please pray for me? This is what's going on."
Wow.
So, and I just think it's God's grace. Honestly, I feel like He was watching over me.
Absolutely,
Um,
absolutely. And so a lot of times on my channel, I like to talk about there needs to be a balance between orthodoxy and orthopraxy, right? It's yeah, you have the correct theology, but then you have to execute and apply that theology. As a
mhm.
15-year-old new believer, who were the men in your life that help you to live out your discipleship?
Oh my gosh! Shout out to my man Barry Lawrence. Barry Lawrence did not let me go to church unless my grades were good, and he made me work. He said, "All right, you want to make money? I'm gonna take you to BJ's. You're gonna sell some M&Ms and some peanuts." And he taught me about what it meant to provide for myself, to give back. He made me go on dates and serve sisters. He taught me about purity. He taught me about protection. Um, so Barry Lawrence is huge. Greg Jones. Oh my gosh, that was. I looked at that dude and just thought like, wow, it's okay to be an aggressive disciple. It's still frowned upon. Like you still have to walk around and be as sheepish as possible to make everyone feel safe. I'm not doing that. But seeing him made me feel like, okay, I could just be myself. Um, Brian Leander, Serge Rowland, Eddie Jodesti, Chris Higgins. I'm gonna forget somebody. Kendall Knight, um, Randy Tennant. Like it was a lot of guys that poured a lot into me. Matt Fridley, Dan Connor. It was a lot of guys that they just believed in me for whatever reason, and you need that when you grow up in a single parent household. You grow up in the projects. You need somebody that you can mirror yourself after. So there's a bunch of people I'm forgetting.
Right,
Um,
right.
Yourself, working, being around you when I was in the ministry, and you kind of teaching me past the principal studies and past what I was being taught on Sundays. A lot of our conversations kind of got flipped in reverse, where you was teaching me different things. So just having relationships with people like that, even my friends, Kunle, Jerome, just my brothers, you know what I mean? So
Right.
I really, it's a long list. It's a
No,
long.
that's great. And again, right, those one another relationships, men teaching other men to be man, a real man, right? And part of the teachings of being a real man is how we deal with the opposite sex, right?
Mhm.
So you, 15-year-old Christian, right? How was it? What are some things you learned when dealing with the sisters in the church, and what did you learn from them?
Well, when I first was in the church, I was trying to do my thing. You know what I mean? So I just want to put it out there. This is the thing about all this YouTube stuff. Someone's gonna write a comment and be like, "Oh, wait a minute." So when I first got baptized, I was actually I don't want to use the term kicked out of Manhattan. I was sent away from Manhattan.
You sent away?
To fellowship in Brooklyn. And nothing happened. Just to be clear, I was a virgin the entire time. So nothing happened, but I was trying to make things happen. You know what I mean? so but in terms of purity, man, I was taught at a very young age, and I thank God to respect women, to cherish them, to value them. And I poured myself into basketball, boxing. I'd fall asleep in the gym if I had to, just to keep myself pure. And even now, it's just a conviction that you have, and it's not necessarily something that somebody else can give you. Also, I always thought about having a single mother in the situation that she was in, and never wanting to be that other guy in somebody else's life. And so, you know, I tried. I read scriptures, cold baths, basketball. I played ball until 1, 2 o'clock in the morning, and you know, I just stayed busy. You know, a lot of young disciples now, you're in your house, you know, you're erasing your phone as much as you can. I know. Just understand that, you know, falling into those things comes with consequences. It doesn't leave. It catches up with you later on when you're trying to have that healthy relationship and you can't control yourself. It's because you didn't build up that stamina when you was younger. So I thank God that and you know how it is. It's just work, man. It's work. It's talking with the brothers. You got to confess. Don't do the cookie cutter. Hey, bro, you know, I was going through some things in my heart. Nah, bro, I was impure. I was lusting. It's this person that you got to be really clear so you can get the help that you need, but not with everybody.
Right.
Because you don't want that one brother that never confessed for like 20 years. And then when you talk to him, you know, he thinks you're an alien.
Spreads what you did to the whole
Yeah,
church.
stay away from people like that. That's they ain't for you. Anyway,
so you must have learned something, right? Because you eventually actually get married, right? And how? Yeah. So if you want to talk about that,
so I'm gonna talk about that. But again, Fredo, you asked me on the show, so you know how I am.
I know what I got myself into. Go ahead. Don't worry about it.
So man, I saw Jennifer and I said, man, I'm going to leave God or marry her. One out the two. Too much happening. She had too much happening in front of my face. And you know, she was everything, man. Like you know, I had dated some other people, but I think chemistry wise, we didn't connect. And in my mind, it's like, okay, I'm gonna be a disciple for the rest of my life. I have to be very selective about who I choose. I have to be very selective about who I choose. And the truth is that I was on a pedestal at the time. I was in a ministry and she wasn't. So I was like, you know, she's not really cut out to be where I am, but probably, you know. And the thing about Jennifer that I love is that she observes everything. She pays attention to every detail. She could not stand me. She knew I was super arrogant. She looked at me and was like, funny story, when she first met me, she was like, who's that guy? What's his problem? Like probably everybody does. And then for some crazy reason, she says something like, oh, what if that'll be my husband? Something. She just thought it when she first met me. And she couldn't stand me, and rightfully so, because I'm sushi. I'm not for everybody. And so I met her, and you know, we went on a couple of dates, and the chemistry was just amazing. Even now, man, she's my best friend. Is way past like what you could think. Like our bond, our connection is something different, man. And so we built and we bugged out and we had a good time and we laughed. And the whole basis of our marriage was about bugging out. It wasn't even like this deep spiritual connection. It was just like, I like her and we have fun. And we went steady for about a year. after 6 months, I got married, and we've been married for about 17 years now, man.
Wow.
It's been a lot of fun. And the reason, I got to tell a story. When I was in the ministry, I had been put on probation because I didn't take care of something the right way. And they would do that with me often. And it would mess me up because it was always my dream to do that. So it was kind of like dangled in front of my face, like, oh, if you don't do this, then we're going to put you on a list. And then one day, Jennifer was like, you don't need that title to do great things for God. You don't. You never needed that title to do great things for God. And one day I said, you know what, bro? I quit. I don't want the title anymore. I'll still serve, but I don't want that title because I feel like it's being used to control me and it doesn't feel good. And, that I married Jennifer because of how much she is willing to speak the truth to me no matter how I feel. And also because she never lets me settle in terms of anything that I do. Like, this PhD is cool for now, but she's going to have some demands in a couple of months. And that's my heart. So,
Wow,
yeah.
that's amazing. In giving and wanting to serve, you decided to focus on education, right? And not just for yourself, but to be an educator. What was that process like for you?
Okay. So I come out the ministry and I was studying human services, and then I got a bachelor's in psychology. And, I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do. I was doing a educational support program in Brownsville, and in all these different schools. Basically, I was in charge of a region. I have to go to Brooklyn, Brownsville, Queens, and I'd have to look at their after-school support services through platform learning and provide supplemental services. So every class I go to, I never saw a Black teacher. And I was like, man, there's no Black male teachers, period, in all of these different schools that I would go to throughout the boroughs. And then I started to reflect on my educational experience. And I was like, man, I didn't have any Black male teachers when I went to school. And then I started to look at the Teaching Fellows program, and I said, I'm gonna give it a try. I'm gonna go into the Teaching Fellows program. It's a little bit of a pay cut, but I wanted to pursue it. Got into the Teaching Fellows program, passed the tests, got into the program. And ever since then, man, it was like I started in 2004, 2005. I haven't looked back. I thank God. I feel like I stopped working back in 2005.
Wow.
I've just been doing what I love. And my kids know it. All my students that I've had, I get to give them something that I didn't have.
Right.
And people may ask about the next steps, like, why'd you go into leadership? What happened was I was teaching a self-contained special education class, and there was a kid named Michael Brown that I had to do an alternative assessment for. And I would push Michael, and I say, Michael, do your best, try your best. And in that moment, I feel like it was the Spirit. I felt like I heard something say, but Shawn, you're not necessarily doing your best if you're just teaching, because you're more than that. And that's when I went back to school to get the leadership master's. And I became an assistant principal, started working in South Shore and all these other things. So that's a more detailed conversation.
And that South Shore, that was near your old stomping grounds, right?
Right.
So was that weird? Being on that
No,
side?
listen, man, let me tell you something. When you're from Brownsville, when you're from East New York and all this different kind of stuff, it's definitely difficult and challenging, but it feels like home. It feels like I belong here. As crazy as it may sound, other people
real quick, look what Audrey says. We couldn't stand him. You could talking to someone else, he was walking by and he would be like, your breath stink, and walk away.
Oh, I'm so sorry. You're right. It's true. I did.
And Nancy is checking in. Proud to know you. Thank you always pushing us to be better and look at things analytically. So
Nancy was one of my first dates. I had to make her sandwiches and go to a park or something like that.
You had to make her sandwiches. Wow.
Barry, he took us to the store. I said I had $10, so he made us buy like lunch meat and make us sandwiches and go on a date with her.
Wow.
So yeah, man. Dag, you just brought me back to Lisa and Nancy. But yeah, man, it was fun. I enjoyed it. I really did enjoy
And
it.
how do you, right? 'Cause it's two worlds, right? There's Christian, right? Christianity, and then there's this secular world of education.
Mhm.
How did you marry the two?
Well, I never stepped away from my faith, and my mindset has always been, if you're gonna fire me for what I believe, then I'm okay with being fired. Now I don't beat people up with the Bible, and I don't like use hallelujah in every word that I use, but I make it very clear. I love God and I'm a disciple. And there's certain things that I'm gonna do, certain things I'm not gonna do. The other thing is, you know, and this is what disciples I think need to understand. When you and it goes back to, oh gosh, Nancy.
So again,
Um, so it goes back to what I was saying about being a person of integrity. When you are who you say you are, it's attractive to people. And I'll give you an example of what I mean. The way that I got my job as an assistant principal is because I confessed my sin. There was a
okay,
principal who was
explain that.
walking through. I'll tell you. My man Joshua Good. He's an Anabaptist Mennonite, white guy, and he was acting as an interim principal in the school that I was teaching at, Lafayette Academy, close to Coney Island. And I was in the back of the classroom on my BlackBerry at that time, right? He walked past, he saw me on my phone, but I didn't see him. When he came into the classroom, he said, "Mr. Brown, what were you doing?" I said, "I was on my phone texting my wife. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have did that. That was wrong." The next thing he said was, "When I get a school, I want you to be my assistant principal."
Wow.
And I was like, why'd you say that? He was like, because if you're telling me the truth when you don't have to, that lets me know I can trust you because you
Wow.
could have lied. He left that year. He got his own school in South Shore, and I was the first person he called.
Wow.
He didn't even interview me.
Wow.
He just said, "Hey man, you start next week. Listen, this is what we need to do." And I'm like, "What do you mean?" What do you, I'm like, "What just happened?" He's like, "Yeah, I'll tell him I interviewed you, but you're my guy, and you need to start next week." And that was it. That was the beginning of our relationship. That was the beginning of me being a leader.
Wow.
And disciples, this whole thing about being honest or being truthful or being transparent, you don't understand, man. People are looking for you to be honest, specifically about your sin, about the things you do wrong. It just makes them feel like, oh, we could be friends forever. So if you ask me about my sin, I'm gonna tell you, I lust, I have fits of rage, I get mad. Sometimes I lie, I could be deceitful, everything. Whatever you feel afraid to discuss, I discuss openly because I don't want to be put on a pedestal that I can't get down from. I don't. I do not. And the person who helped me with that was my wife. We was looking at TV and Beyonce came on. This is earlier on in the marriage. She was like, "Shawn, what do you think about how she looks?" I was like, "Come on, man. You are my heart, and I want your heart and my heart." And she was like, "Yo, dude, tell me what you think about Beyonce. Tell me." I was like, she's dancing. Like, is she a disciple though? Like, she was like, "All right, Shawn, she looks good. I know she looks good. When you act like she doesn't, that makes me more nervous." So I was like, "Oh, so that's what we doing?" She's like, "Yes, that's what we're doing. That's how we're gonna stay happily married, sir." And I slowly learned, like, I don't want that facade of the super spiritual person, and that's what's kept me faithful. I don't know about everybody else. Probably, y'all do what
Wow.
y'all
That's amazing. So now
do.
we've reached PhD level, right?
You know what I mean?
So
Meow, 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 meow.
right. You got those two letters. You know what I mean? Like I actually love calling you Dr. Brown. I think that's just so dope, man. It
I make
really
my
is.
kids, yo, check it. I make my wife and kids say it every time.
But
They
man,
can't
you
even
worked
call me
hard, man.
daddy. They can't call me daddy.
It's Doctor
Sure.
Daddy, Doctor Daddy.
Doctor. Yeah.
But all right. So now that we're here, right? What does that mean now? Now that we're at this level, which is pretty high up in the evolutionary, scholastic kingdom, where do we do? I'm assuming this is more like the beginning for you than anything, right?
Oh yeah, it's the
So
transformation.
where we going from here, Dr. Brown? Where we going?
So just to be clear about why I got it because somebody made me feel like I couldn't get it.
Dang. So you did it on a dare?
It's a Brownsville thing. It's a Brownsville thing. You made me feel uncomfortable. So now I'm gonna have to get that PhD, and now you got to call me a different name now.
Ah,
How about
dang.
that? I got a list of names. Now you got to all call me a different
Your
name, and I
petty
wait,
game is crazy.
son. I'm 50 Cent level with it. Like you
Petty
gotta
Pendergrass, Petty J. Blige.
absolutely. I'll wait when somebody say Mister, and I just wait like I don't hear him. Like what? Doctor? Oh, what's yes. So sorry, but honestly, I got the PhD because one, I wanted to normalize Black intellectualism. Um, you know, in the 17th and 18th century, we were when a Black person was able to read or write or do anything that was remotely intelligent, they would treat us as if we were these special beings. We were like exhibits. They would have people come and search us, and doctors would check us out because in their mind they're like, how did this Negro do that?
Wow.
And what I wanted to do is I just wanted to be a regular guy that models and exemplifies what it means to just put in the work and get it done. And I want people to look at it and go, oh, Shawn got, oh, yeah. Well, you know, he ain't that smart, so I can get one too. I want that. I don't take any offense to it. Now, when you actually do the work, you'll see is a bit different, but I like that. In terms of the PhD, so basically the PhD is for people who need that. It's people that need to hear that before they listen to
That
me.
you win. Right.
I don't need to have a conversation with my brothers and sisters about certain things. They don't need that. They don't care. But there's other people that need to hear it when you're in those circles. It's almost like an entry pass to say, hey, I'm saying the same things I said before I had the title, but you needed this because of your insecurity. So here you are. But now it's about doing research, started writing a book, going on my YouTube channel, starting a business, speaking. And I really want to normalize what it means because they have these stigmas about Black men. And I'm like, these things are not true. I have students that are Bloods, Crips, gang members, you know, friends that did time. They're just as, if not more intelligent than I am. I think educators are just not able to connect to them. So it's easier to point the finger and say, there's something wrong with them. And what I want to do is say, no, there's something wrong with your teaching.
Wow.
There's something wrong with your institutions. It has nothing to do with the students whatsoever.
Right.
So this is the beginning.
So I mean, I think the term is pedagogy, right? Is that the term? The art of teaching someone
Art of
something?
teaching. Absolutely.
And so that's what you're trying to like create one where the inner city person can have a streamlined focus and have the ability and the encouragement to be a doctor as well.
Right.
That's
And
your goal.
also to what happens is that a lot of Black folks who go into academia have this subconscious belief that they have to strip themselves of their culture in order to fit into this world, which is also not true. In the world of academia, in the academy or the universities that you're going into, they're looking for new, fresh ideas. So when I speak of Nas and Illmatic's album and what that meant for our cultures. And I deconstruct it and I use verbiage and a vernacular that they understand. I look at
Code
Jay-Z's
switching.
code switching, all
Code
that kind
switching.
of stuff.
Right.
And I thank God, and even in the church, growing up in the church, it was always like, yeah, I definitely want to be a disciple, but I don't want to have to sacrifice my culture. I'm a hip hop head. You know what I mean? Like, I listen to Mobb Deep, Nas, Jay-Z in order to do better in my scholarship. This is who I am. So I never wanted to detach from that. I was kind of taught that, but it was like, no, this is who I am.
Wow.
And so I want to just demystify a lot of lies that people may believe about Black men and their intelligence and all these different kind of things.
Wow.
And I'm excited about it.
And we're excited right along with you, sir. I definitely believe in you, and there's a lot of people in the chat that believe in you. We got Darrell, right? Darrell knows Mr. Brown. Damon here says, proud to say I've known Dr. Brown back when he was a 5% of Brown. So proud of you, bro. Love you, man.
Yeah, man.
Yeah. So at this time, the good doctor will take some questions. Now, I have to warn you, if he doesn't like the question, he's not going to answer it. I can't force the man to do anything. All
Yeah.
right. So please keep that in mind and don't feel bad if he says next question. Okay.
I'm gonna say you're a dub, like my students say. You're a dub.
So any questions for the good doctor? And while you're getting these questions up, after this, bro, I know people really want to hear more from you. So where can we reach you at? What platforms
Um,
are you
I'm
on?
just I'm just starting all this stuff. So I think I started a YouTube channel. It's called Dr. Shawn Brown. Facebook Shawn
Put
Brown.
put the link in the chat so we
That's
could be
what
able
I.
to share it.
Well, that's I got to figure out how to do that. All right, go
so
ahead.
so as he's doing, so you're now on YouTube. I mean, I know you're doing some amazing work on Facebook recently. You've been doing some interviews with some amazing people, just really equipping people to deal with the world that we're in now. Well, if we're honest, the world we've been in for some time. But you've definitely had some people, that
Hmm.
can really equip us to deal with our current affair. So,
I
oh,
think
so
you know what it
here's a
is. I think
question.
that
Yeah, go ahead. Well, have to ask what is going on with his church and the current unrest.
oh oh man. So what's been going on in the church? So what had happened was is a bunch of disciples started to talk about our congregation's lack of aggression in talking about racial issues, like meaning um, we don't want to just sit back and pray about it and trust that eventually God will fix it. Um, so a group of disciples, Audrey, Ebony, Vicky, Prince, all of us, we started to really push the conversation on our church's website. And at first, it was a lot of backlash, and a lot of people started to say that we're being, I guess, divisive or ungodly. But what happened was leaders from other congregations started to say, well, if we're being honest, I myself, the leader, have some issues that I need to confess and be open about. And we started to see a change in the conversation. There were some disciples or some Christians that said, well, we don't want to be a part of this fellowship anymore. And to that, we said, I bid you adieu. And I hope you find a place that you feel comfortable in, because we are going to have we're going to be a part of this conversation. So it shifted. Um, but that's just phase one of the reopening, I would say. Phase two is now we need to deconstruct the pillars, the deep beliefs that we have in our congregation about hierarchy, about racial issues, the stuff that we kind of know of, but we don't really dig into. We need to have a deeper conversation about it so those structures don't come up again.
Cool,
And so I feel excited about that.
cool. Audrey asks, what was the process of defending your dissertation?
Yeah, I don't want to hear all that. Okay, so it's much more than it's a lot of work, and I'm not saying this to brag, but you should know. I think it's encouraging to hear. I was given a 5-year fellowship to finish my dissertation. I finished in 3.5 years.
Wow.
I doubled up on my classes. I took classes from sometimes 3 o'clock to about 9 o'clock at night. And I discipline myself every single day. I do 3 hours reading, 3 hours of reading, 3 hours of writing. And my chair, Dr. Juan Battle, who's a statistician, I just let him know like I needed to get out of this program. I need to be with my family. I need to be with my wife. I need to get home at a certain time to be with my wife. I don't like getting home late. I need her to rub my belly and make. I'm being honest. Jennifer knows I'm being honest. I need her to help me out. So I'm running a school, married, 3 kids. I was coaching 2 basketball teams. Shawn and Jonathan. Caitlin have gymnastics, and I just for 3 hours a day I would do my research, I would do my writing, and I started to compose this theory. Now, my theory, if you want to hear it, is Yuri Bronfenbrenner's ecological systems theory of child development, which looks at the different environments that a child is in that informs their development. But in his theory, he never really discusses race as an overarching issue that Black children have to face. Because of that, I added to that macro theory the micro theory of critical race theory, of critical race, Gloria Ladson Billings, where she talks about storytelling and interest convergence and all these different portions of critical race theory. And specifically, it talks about the permanence of racism in our culture. And I used that to frame the Black child in the ecological systems theory. And then I looked at intersectionality, which looks at the ways that a person can be discriminated against based on race, class, gender, and all this stuff. So it's a very, it's a lot.
So
but,
are you gonna convert that into a book? Since you already wrote the bulk of that.
Right. So the dissertation is more quantitative, and the book will be more qualitative, where I'd have conversations with Black folks in education at all levels to look at the patterns and trends throughout their experiences to, you know.
Right. No, that's amazing. My man Prince says, and thank you for the super chat. Definitely appreciate that, sir. What benefits have you seen come out of your students seeing you, a Black man from Brownsville, in your position?
Well, I think kids from Brownsville or East New York or whatever it is, they just don't want to feel like they're being herbed into or punked into this nerdy person, right? So they want to be smart. Like if you look at the Black Panthers and, this whole idea of being an intellectual away from toughness is a lie. You had very tough people back then that were really smart. And our kids in Brownsville, they want to do well, but they don't want to compromise who they are. So I tell kids all the time, there's this one kid, I hope he's looking too. He's a blood. I love him. Gordon Goins. He is one of the smartest kids I have ever had in school. He's a blood. He's triple OG, whatever blood. He's up there. But he's super intelligent. I just gave him a recommendation to become a paraprofessional, and I want to bring him under my wing and make him a teacher. And I want to use children like him specifically to say, hey, you could be a blood. You could be tough. You could do all those kinds of things. Be responsible, get a job, use your intellect to make a way for yourself. So what I see changing is that a lot of my kids are saying things like, oh, Brown is a principal, I could be a principal. If Brown could do it, I could do it. I love it. And I'm getting a chance to mentor other brothers like Dexter, Rick Romaine, Kyle, Dukinson. These are all people that are becoming teachers and eventually will become leaders. So I'm excited about, I want to build an army is what I want to build. So when we go to conferences, we go 30 deep, like a whole bunch of Puerto Ricans.
That's what's up. So before we go, sir, any last parting comments to give to the people before we're out of here?
Last parting comments. I would say don't misjudge people that look like me. That's where I'm from. You have no clue of our potential, our abilities. When we're provided with the right support and encouragement, we're able to do amazing things. For people that are inside the church or outside the church who are looking and like, wow, be careful about that person that you write off. Be careful. People have written Fredo off, given them different labels, and you see what my man is doing. People have written me off, or you want to label people as aggressive, or the Holy Spirit will embarrass you. Don't do that.
Don't do it to yourself.
Don't do it. You know what I mean? So that's all I wanted to share, man. And
cool,
thanks.
Man. I want to thank you, Dr. Brown, for being here. So this is the BK Apologist signing off. 1.